Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones! So, throughout 2022, I have had the pleasure of covering every single Shantae game in celebration of her 20th anniversary. So now, I don't see any need to stretch this out, I am looking at what is currently the newest title in the series, Shantae and the Seven Sirens. Seven Sirens originally released for Apple Arcade in 2019, or at least like the first part did, and then I think they got like the second part later. It was some whole exclusivity deal. Thankfully that expired in 2020 when the game was released for other major platforms. Once again, all of the footage you're seeing in this video comes from my physical copy of the Switch version. Sometime after the events of Half Genie Hero, Shantae, Uncle Mimic, Sky, Wrench, and Bolo head off to Paradise Island for a relaxing trip. That name is so on the nose, they may as well have called it Everything is Fineberg. However, Shantae has never been one to avoid mixing business with pleasure, so the purpose of this trip is actually for Shantae to take part in the first ever Half Genie Hero Festival, sponsored by Gamersups and hosted by the mayor and his trustworthy mustache. For the first time in the series, we get a chance to meet other actual Half Genie characters besides Shantae. There's Harmony, the oldest Half Genie of all time, but this is by anime girl standards, so she's probably like, I don't know, like 27. Plink, who leads a hellish existence of being able to see the unseen. Zapple, who is a little standoffish. Vera, who is just super friendly. And a peculiar zombie Half Genie named Fill-In. Fill in the blank. Why am I so drawn to her? Well, I'll figure it out later. During a rehearsal dance for the festival, the power goes out, and all 5 of the half-genies except Shantae are magically kidnapped. The mayor then... Oh god, here it comes! Politely asks Shantae not to worry or put herself in any danger. Oh man, that's like getting vacation fired. But yeah, the introduction basically establishes our objective pretty nicely. You meet 5 half-genies, they get kidnapped, and you've got to go rescue them. It's not the most groundbreaking plot, but it works well as a motivator for Shantae on a personal level, and I like it. Unlike the past couple of games, which focused more on Shantae traveling to disconnected areas, Seven Sirens is one big world, and feels more like a proper search-action title. That said, I don't particularly like the world in Seven Sirens. You basically only have 2 types of areas, above ground and below ground. Above ground is fine, it's a tropical paradise. You all know I am a sucker for good island environments. You've got 3 distinct towns that all feel different from one another, and I think it works fine. But below ground is where the bulk of the map is, and it's just not that interesting. The game tells you it's this ancient city, so everything just kinda looks samey and mechanical. Sure, they do try to mix up the areas by being like, Metal City, but mossy. Or Metal City, but pirate ship. It's just not as memorable as the islands from Pirate's Curse, the stages from Half Genie Hero, or even just the variety in the very first Shantae game, if I'm being honest. Dungeons make a comeback in this game, and they're definitely a lot more interesting than the main map. Once you enter these portals, you basically get sucked into a much more unique area. I mean, unique compared to the rest of the map, but not really all that unique compared to other games in the series. The last dungeon is basically a timed combat trial, and I thought we all agreed this was a bad idea when Risky's Revenge did it. The sense of progression is pretty standard search action stuff. As you go through each dungeon, you rescue one of the half-genies, who gives Shantae a new transformation. Once you're out of the dungeon, you have to usually perform a small fetch quest to get a fusion stone, which allows the half-genie you just rescued to give Shantae their magic abilities. In Seven Sirens, all of Shantae's transformations work through these fusion coins, and are done instantaneously rather than by dancing. And honestly, I love this system, since it allows you to keep Shantae's unique transformations, but with the satisfying quickness of using Risky's pirate gear from the previous games. This is a fantastic blending of these styles, and I really hope they keep this. All of the forms are new to this game, by the way. You've got the Dash Newt that lets Shantae do a dash and cling to walls, similar to the Monkey, which is weirdly absent from this game, especially since Shantae transforms into it in the opening cinematic, and even talks about doing it with one of the other half-genies. Then there's the Gastro Drill that exists to allow Shantae to dig through these sand traps, and nothing else. The Bonker Tortoise is kinda similar to the Elephant, as it's mostly used to break through blocks, but you don't really have as much control of it as you did with the elephant, so I don't like it as much. The sea frog is this game's take on the form that lets Shantae explore underwater. I do like that it's faster than the mermaid, but mechanically it's almost identical to the gastro drill, it just works with water instead of sand. Then there's the jet octo, which is basically just a triple jump. It's simple, but effective. Now, if you were paying attention, you may have noticed that all of these transformations share a theme of being aquatic-ish creatures, and theming is something that I think Seven Sirens does really well. Aside from the transformations, the game's main bosses, the titular Seven Sirens, are also based on aquatic elements, like coral, anglerfish, or octopuses. Octopi. And hey, I really like the theming of them too. All the sirens are well designed, and the boss fights themselves are great. The only thing that sucks is they aren't given much character outside of a single cutscene before Shantae fights them until... well, I'll get into that a little later. Oh yeah, also, Risky Boots is here. I really didn't know where else to talk about that. She just kind of shows up in every dungeon as a mini-boss, and her Tinkerbats are scattered throughout the map. They're really just kind of minding their own business, though. Earlier, I mentioned Shantae gaining abilities from the other half-genies, and these are where Seven Sirens still utilizes Shantae's dancing. Plink's ability sounds good on paper. It lets Shantae see the unseen, which boils down to a few rooms have invisible platforms, but way more rooms have these invisible cat statues. There's so many invisible cat statues. And whenever you enter a room where you can use a dance ability, the half-genie's face pops up, and if I ever see Plink's stupid bouncing face again, it'll be too soon, and oh, you can turn them off. I really wish I'd known that before I recorded everything. The dances are all pretty situational. Vera's dance can heal you, which is nice. It also works with these plants, can depoisonify water, and can bring skulls back to life, which, dear God, that is an existential nightmare. Zapple's dance is a giant FU electrical burst that can restore power to a few machines and damage enemies on screen, and Harmony's dance allows you to cause massive earthquakes, which seems like a really bad idea in a structurally unsound underground city. Also, every dance gives you an unrelated image of a hot anime girl, which I'm not gonna say I don't appreciate, but between 6 half-genie girls, Risky Boots, Sky, these mysterious figures, and the Seven Sirens, this is definitely the most waifu-heavy game in the series. And speaking of those 6 half-genies, Fill-In is actually Roddy Top, so naturally we don't get a dance from her. However, by Roddy Top's pretending to be a half-genie, that's why she got captured instead of Shantae. So if you really think about it, Roddy Tops is totally the hero. Speaking of Roddy Tops, I'd like to stop here for a moment. No, I actually don't have anything to say. This just seemed like a really good place to stop for a bit. One way that Seven Sirens feels like a step backward from Half-Genie Hero is in the Collectibles. That last game had heart containers, plot-relevant items, transformation upgrades, art gallery keys, and just general upgrades to Shantae. Seven Sirens technically only has 2 collectibles. Heart Squids that you can bring to the Squidsmith, and I am very happy that the Squidsmith is back, and Nuggets, which you can trade for monster cards of the game's bosses. Which brings me to the last collectible, the monster card system, which is new to this game. Basically, every enemy in the game has a chance of dropping a monster card when you defeat it, which not only acts like a fun bestiary of Shantae's more memorable foes, but each of these cards allows Shantae to gain passive abilities. These abilities range from increased chance of enemies dropping hearts to certain power-ups costing less magic to use. The rule, however, is you can only equip 3 cards at a time. On paper, I really like this system, but I do have a few issues with it in practice. The main issue I have is that different enemies require you to collect different numbers of cards before you can unlock the ability. It can be super annoying when you're running back and forth between rooms to try and get a card of a specific enemy, and when you finally do, discover you actually need 4 or even 9 more of the same card. Thankfully, cards don't count towards your completion percentage because the low chance of getting some of these cards, coupled with needing to get duplicates of some of them, is a bit tedious. If they bring the system back in Shantae 6, I really hope they make it so getting a card just lets you use the ability. Also, come on, some of these upgrades are so situational and minuscule. One of them is literally a card from one enemy allows Shantae to actually be able to kill another type of enemy for the sole purpose of getting that enemy's card. Overall, I do think Shantae and the Seven Sirens has a lot of good ideas. The story is probably one of the best in the series after Pirate's Curse, even if I wish the other half-genies and titular sirens had a little bit more personality. I would have rather spent more time getting to know them over the surprisingly high amount of Squid Baron stuff that's in this game. I mean, he definitely did give me a few laughs here and there, he always does, but at a certain point, I'm with Shantae on this one.
This is dumb.
The transformation mechanics are some of the best we've seen so far. The theming works so well. The monster card system is mostly good, it just needs a few tweaks. The soundtrack is pretty awesome, even though they didn't get regular composer Jake Kaufman back for this one, and the voice acting is good when it shows up. Also, by the way, Bolo is now voiced by Ross O'Donovan, and I just kind of love that. He's Ross. The game ends on a pretty nice note, but it is definitely leaning hard into what will presumably be Shantae 6, so I'm expecting that game to bring a lot to the table plot-wise. Now, one thing I want to talk about before I start wrapping things up is in late 2021, WayForward released a free update to the game called the Spectacular Superstar Update, which introduced 4 brand new ways to play Seven Sirens. Each of these modes added several new story elements, which gave all the bosses a bit more character before the fights, which was absolutely great. I loved seeing more personality from the bosses. So right off the bat, I'm going to say this. Don't play Legacy mode. There's just less in it. It's nice they kept it for the purists, but I really can't think of any reason to play through this mode. So what about the other 4 modes? You've got Definitive mode, which is just a little bit more challenging, so that's fine. It's a perfectly good mode. Then there's Full Deck mode, which starts you off with every single monster card in the game, but you can still only use 3 at a time. Rule Breaker mode is a mode where you still have to earn the cards, but you can now equip as many as you want. This is probably my personal favorite mode, since you still have to put in the work to get the cards, but you get the satisfaction of feeling like Shantae is getting progressively more powerful. I earned this fairly useless ability to climb ropes slightly faster, and I'm gonna use it, gosh darn it! Then there's Beginner mode, which some of you may have noticed I played for the purposes of recording this footage. Partially because I'd never played through this mode before, so I was curious, and partially because I was kind of in a hurry to record footage to make this video. So, full disclosure, I am someone who plays a lot of video games on easy mode. That said, Seven Sirens Beginner mode is easy to a fault, and I can't recommend it if you want a satisfying game. There are times when the infinite auto potions are hilarious for getting collectibles, but trust me, I'd stick with Definitive mode. If you think you still need a leg up, I can recommend Full Deck or Rule Breaker, with the latter still being my preferred go-to. Shantae and the Seven Sirens is a good game, and one I can absolutely recommend to people interested in checking out the series. There's a reason I had it in my top 10 games of 2020, and heck, that was before the free update improved things. However, it's also in the awkward place of being, in my opinion, the first Shantae game that isn't better than the one before it. So while I can recommend it, I'd probably recommend other titles in the series more. Alright, and there we go, 5 Shantae games across a 20-year anniversary. I want to thank you all for joining me on this magical half-genie adventure. What do you all think about Shantae? Is it a series you like? Is it a series you hate? Did my videos make you want to play any of them? Whatever your feelings about Shantae are, let me know in the comments below, and I'll probably be back to this topic one day whenever we get Shantae and the Magic Bikini Top. And now, before I officially wrap things up, here is my personal list of the top 5 Shantae games. Go! Number 5, Original Shantae. Number 4, Risky's Revenge. Number 3, Seven Sirens. Number 2, Pirate's Curse. And number 1, Half Genie Hero. Also, I love you, Roddy Tom! Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, be sure to click like, but if you really liked it, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Extra special thanks to all my friends and loved ones over on Patreon, which you can pledge to today to see your own name in these ending credits. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.